What's up, guys, and welcome back to episode 2 of our informational segments on a VH45 swap into an S13. Today we're going to cover steps 6 through 11, and that pretty much gets you ready to put the motor into the car. So let's get talking.
Yep. Last video we covered steps 1 through 5. We'll put a link right up here and one down in the description so you can watch that if you haven't yet. For step 6, you're gonna have to remove the motor if you got a car. Most of you probably will get one from a junkyard, so you can skip this. As per the FSM, they recommend you drop the motor out of the engine bay with the cross member and everything, but that's not an option for us since we do not have a lift. Some of the stuff that we ran into was sway bars got in the way, the AC got in the way, the tranny lines got in the way.
The alternator.
Oh, and the alternator. Because it was just hard to get to some of the bolts that we need to remove. If we had to do it again, we probably would have pulled the transmission off of the motor and pulled it out, because fishing that transmission out of the engine bay was just a pain.
Just set aside a full day for this step.
We've pulled multiple motors,
Yeah.
and this one was by far the most difficult.
If you get it out quicker, you're welcome.
Yeah, definitely pull that transmission.
Alright, for step 7, that's going to be cleaning the motor. Now, not everyone's going to do this, and you're certainly not required to. However, based on the condition of this motor before and after, I think we can change your mind. This motor had 250,000 miles on it, and it looked it. There was oil leaks everywhere. There was standing oil, standing water, or coolant, I mean. And just, worn out hoses and everything. So what we did, we stripped it down, we pulled the manifold off, cleared the valley out, left the valve covers on, but stripped the whole front end, pulled all the hoses out. We sprayed it with gunk engine cleaner, both the original and the foamy. I personally think that the foamy worked a little better.
Oh yeah, it definitely worked a lot better.
And then we just pressure washed it. And you got to make sure that you're careful not to get water into the intake valve or intake runners. We did have that issue, so maybe take other precautions.
Stuffing rags down the runners,
something.
And then tape.
For the parts that were smaller, like the lower intake manifold runners and some of the coolant flanges, we actually dunked those in like a simple green bath. We took one of those like Rubbermaid tubs, filled it with simple green and water, it's probably like a 50-50 mix. Maybe not, maybe it was a 3-to-1. Anyways, and we let it sit, just kind of like shook it every once in a while to agitate it, and it made things really easy for cleaning those up. We just took some nylon brushes and a couple rags and pretty much just wiped them down.
Yeah, for majority of it, we just took shop rag and just scrubbed the dirt off.
Yeah.
Didn't even have to push hard to get them off.
It just fell off. So coolant flanges, they did have some calcium buildup. We tried leaving those in CLR overnight, and I probably wouldn't do it again. No. It wasn't really worth the time. At this point too, it would be good to paint everything as we have. This timing cover is actually painted and it looks amazing. So
it looked amazing before we painted it, but we just wanted to get all that rough stuff off the front.
Yeah, like the oxidation that you just couldn't clean out of the aluminum. We used VHT. I would definitely recommend it. We would have done the whole motor, but internally this thing's going to need a rebuild next winter. So
yep. For step 8, you're going to want to reseal the engine. Again, you do not have to. You can just throw the motor in and be fine, but we recommend it because almost everything on this was leaking. So I got a gasket set from Amazon. It ended up not being what I thought. It was for a 90 to 93, and I guess the intake runners.
It was labeled 1990 to 96. It wasn't like you just didn't read it. It was just incorrectly marked.
Because the intake runners are different, so that's a good thing to know. It did come with the front and rear main seals and a lot of the gaskets, like for the water pump and the thermostat, but if I probably would have done it again, I would have just bought everything individually, because I pretty much had to. The runners, the front and rear main seal aren't very expensive from O'Reilly's or auto parts store.
In hindsight, it probably would have been better off to do that.
Yeah, because we had to get like doubles of everything,
Yeah.
it seemed like.
However, none of those gasket sets come with valve cover gaskets. That's going to be something you're going to have to get elsewhere. I would advise you to be very careful when doing this because we somehow ended up ordering a valve cover gasket for a 97. Not the same because it doesn't have the VTC solenoids. And we paid $63 for the set. Fortunately, Michael was able to find some on Parts Geek.
Yeah, Parts Geek.
Parts Geek, and they were
$15, $16.
Yeah, they don't come with the grommet set, but you can just go buy these grommets. Go to O'Reilly's and buy the valve cover set for a Maxima or something.
The other reason why you want to replace the valve cover gaskets, mine literally fell apart and cracked. Of course it's not. It just breaks apart. So
when we pulled it out, like, and if you go back and watch the vlog from this part of the reseal, you'll see it. But literally pulling it out, you'd get a little piece and it'd snap. That would probably be one of the things I'd say as a must do.
Yeah.
Before you do your swap. If you're not going to do anything else that we've talked about so far in this segment, at least replace your valve cover gaskets. Step 8 will also be kind of reassembling the motor as you reseal it. It'd be a great time to go through and rewire everything that's in the valley, like the coolant temp sensor, the knock sensors, the injectors, and stuff like that.
Yeah, because the harness is all crusty and stuff, and you can watch my video of just pulling up chips of tape. But if you're going to be in there, I would replace the actual knock sensors. Ours were cracked. They are pretty pricey, but it kind of tells the ECU if your car's knocking, and that's really smart to do.
All right, for step 9, it's going to be installing this bad boy right here. This is the XCESSIVE bracket, alternator relocation bracket, and it replaces where the stock like AC/alternator bracket would go. It's really easy to install. The instructions were really straightforward. The only thing they didn't have was torque specs, but you can find that in the FSM. You need to keep 2 bolts, and that's going to be the 2 that are on the tensioner, the idler, the tensioner for the alternator or AC belt.
AC belt.
AC belt? Okay.
AC belt.
Because it does reuse those, but they do provide you with the hardware for... Oh, and the long alternator bolt. It comes with the hardware for the rest. And, I mean, it fits in there nice. I think if we did this again, we'd paint it black, because I feel like this side's really black. And this side's missing something.
Next thing we're going to talk about, step 10, is the power steering pulley. You're going to want to get this because you'll come in contact with the tension rod brackets.
And the stock pulley is probably a full 2 inches, 1.5 inches bigger in diameter.
Oh, yeah. We went with the XCESSIVE pulley, and it comes with the belt for it. Weren't you reading on there that...
Yeah. I can't remember the source, but when I started doing research on this, I found a forum that talked about using a power steering pulley from, I think it was a Sentra with the SR in it.
Okay, the SCR.
Yeah, but the XCESSIVE kit definitely made it easy. It came with the belts and everything because all your belts are going to change, so I would still recommend just going with the pulley. If we were doing this again, I'd just go XCESSIVE.
Because then you have to get a shoelace, wrap it around everything, make sure it's tight, and then go to the hardware store and find one that's that size.
Yeah, probably not the hardware store, the parts store might.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so that brings us to step 11. Step 11 is going to be installing the motor mounts. The XCESSIVE mounts are a solid mount, so they bolt right to the block, and that brings it down to the cross member and an S13.
All the XCESSIVE parts come with really good installation instructions. They tell you that there's a part on the block that might have to be ground down because the plate won't sit flat. We didn't run into this issue.
Also, the torque spec for these was what, 35?
Yes, 35.
We had a little bit of trouble finding that in the FSM. So with that being said, the coming weeks we will be getting the transmission mounted onto this, getting this in the car, and tackling the wiring diagram. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in seeing any of that. We've got a nice playlist that's got all of Michael's build thread thing in it, and I'll go ahead and drop a link to that down there. I think we already dropped one up here. But definitely tune back in for that. And we'll get back to you guys with step 12 through
whatever it ends up being.
Once this thing's in the car. So thanks for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And we'll see you later.
Peace.
Alright, so that brings us to... What am I doing?
You're waiting for it. You're like...